welcome to another episode of Ministry Matters That Matter. We're here at the Heritage Christian Set at the Exposure Youth Camp at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And I have my good friend and Heritage Christian Board member, Dale Jenkins, with me today. So let's talk about how you've kind of made a transition, because I think another gift you have, and you and Jeff have made a great team. Both of you, a lot of experience in ministry with churches, and I think one of your gifts is your ability to minister to those who minister. You know, I think about the Don't Quit on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just the keeping minute. I wonder how many ministers stayed in ministry because of what y'all do. And not just, I mean, there's the advice side, but there's also the encouragement side, that what you do matters. So could you talk about some of the work y'all are doing with the Jenkins Institute and the conferences, etc.?
I'm very happy to do that. Rewind 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and my elders at Granny White came to me and they said, we think you are too accessible. Anybody can come in your office anytime you're in your office all day long, and they can stay as long as they want to, and we need you to be out of the office one day a week, away from everybody, where you can have some time. And they may have been telling me you're not preparing well enough, but I think what they're really telling me is we think you need some time to be by yourself and not be interrupted. And they said, they'll go anywhere you want. So cell phones already come around by then, and so I had a cell phone, and I went to the little Starbucks there in Green Hills, and I'd spend a day there. And like the third week I was there, it was on a Friday, and I started a blog. I called it The Blog That Binds. My little article for the bulletin was The Tie That Binds for 40 years, The Blog That Binds. So I titled it that. And the second post, the first post I wrote, I talked about how I want somewhere that I can be myself. Because when I wrote a bulletin article at Granny White, literally there were 6 people that would proof that bulletin article before it went to press. So Denny Lloyd, and Marie Robertson, all these wonderful, godly people, and they all checked different things. And I was thankful for them. But I got to where I wouldn't read what I wrote because it wasn't what I wrote. So I wanted somewhere I could be myself. The second post I wrote a little thing called the Heart of a Minister. It came about because of Heritage. I have been called and asked, this has been 14 years ago, I think now, to speak, maybe 15, to speak at the first day of school for the new incoming students.
Right.
And I had a little speech I put together, everything. I'm driving down the interstate, and something had happened that was really frustrating that day. And I wrote down, in your ministry, you will have X happen, but keep on doing this. And then I thought, that's not a bad line. So then I wrote another line. I kept writing. And it became my little book, The Heart of a Minister. And it's because of the Heritage and being able to speak there that I had that opportunity. So what a blessing that ended up being in my life. So when I posted that article after that speech online after I gave it, it blew up. I mean, it got like, this has been years ago. It got like 2,500 hits in a day.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, everybody else feels the same way I feel.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I was off on this island. All these weird thoughts and feelings I had were just me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, no, others. And then I started thinking, well, if I struggle with this and all these other people are struggling with this, somebody should start talking about it. And so that's kind of how we started. And then we started the Scoop blog, which is kind of a silly little name for a project we do that helps churches find preachers.
Heaven only knows how many churches and preachers have connected with that.
It's weird, isn't it? It's people
phenomenal.
to me and say, I got a job and found it on your site. It's like, okay,
Well,
that's kind of
when folks, because anytime it was the same thing at Freed and at Heritage, somebody's looking, whether it's a church looking or a preacher looking, they reach out to you. And so I regularly give them 3, said, make sure it's these 3 places. And one of them is the Heritage page where we list those looking. But the first one I tell them is, have you given it to Dale at Scoops so he can get it on there?
Well, and probably the difference in us and Heritage, Freed Hardeman, and all our other schools is we don't belong to any school
Yes.
And by nature, there are churches that would go to Heritage because I've had good experience with Heritage, or there are places that y'all recommend guys to go to because y'all want your guys to go to good places.
Yeah.
We don't have any of those ties. We have a larger sense of a tie with all of them, but no direct tie. None of them we're obligated to. And so that's probably why we get a few more hits than some other folks. But it's just, that's not us. He goes, oh, you do a great job. That's not, we don't do anything. You call us and say, hey, there's a church down in Jackson, Mississippi looking for a preacher.
But it's just nice to have a warehouse or, have a storefront.
Or the Yellow Pages.
A digital store. Yeah, there you go, the Yellow Pages. So tell me about the Better Conferences this year. You've not really retired. You just transitioned from local work to the ministry to ministers.
Between the two of us, we spoke 700 times last year.
Man, you're so lazy.
Somebody said, "How you liking retirement?" I'm loving it. More than ever.
Go back to work so I can rest.
And so I want to address that, but I want to talk about that for just a minute. If I don't want to take too much time here. Okay.
Right.
So when I was at Spring Meadows, anytime I'd be gone, which was way too often, but anytime I'd be gone, I would feel guilty. And it wouldn't matter if somebody asked me to come speak on a Monday night in a gospel meeting, a one-night thing, and it's going to drive over there that night and be back later that night. And if I wasn't doing that, I was either going to be at home with my wife or, going to some event that I had nothing to do with that the church was doing other than I was a member of the church. And it didn't matter. I would feel guilty anytime I was gone. One of the advantages of what we do now is if somebody calls and says, will you come? I can say yes. And I don't have to worry about am I neglecting the local congregation. Right. And so that's been a real privilege. So Graymere had something to do with the Better Conferences. You probably know this. I was driving down I-65. I-65 seems to make a lot in my life. I was driving down I-65 one day, and Russ called me.
Okay.
And Rusty called me.
Yeah.
Rusty called me. And he and Barry were together and talking, youth minister at Rusty, the youth minister at Graymere. And he said, who is better at delivering the invitation than anybody in the church today? And I said immediately, Keith Parker.
Yes, that's what it is.
Keith gets in the pulpit, delivering it. He does. Willie Collins was that way. Marshall Keeble was that way. There's some preachers, the second they stand up there, they start delivering the invitation. Now, they preach a sermon, but they're
after the invitation
the whole time.
Yeah.
Collins was awesome at it. I mean, he knew where he was going, and he knew where he was going.
I remember, he was school president when my first 3 years undergrad.
Yeah, he was
never heard
awesome
Marshall Keeble other than on tapes.
Yeah. But as soon as you asked me that question, I thought, wouldn't it kind of be neat if you had a program where you brought in all these guys that are excellent at specific things and had them stand up and tell how they do what they do. So, with no criticism toward you, Heritage, or any of our schools, y'all do what you can do, and you have a short period of time. You have a very small window. Even if you think about a 4-year degree, you have a very small window. And so you train people in the text, which has to be done. That's primary in everything we do. The first thing every preacher should say when he gets in the pulpit is, open your Bibles too.
Yes.
But we don't all do that, but that's the first thing. That's where we start. We start with the Bible. But so you train people in the text, you train people how to exegete, you train people how to preach expository, you train them how to do outlines, you train them how to, all those technical things that have to be taught. And I thought, nobody is training preachers how to do the one thing that every preacher has to do, and that's actually stand up and talk.
Right. Yeah.
And we do some of that, but there's there are guys that go through Freed-Hardeman and get a 4-year degree, and they preach 2 sermons in the 4 years they're there, And that's not a criticism. It's like, you've only got a period. Our schools of preaching, like Bear Valley, they're 2-year schools, 2-year program. Well, if I got 2 years, what am I going to do? I'm going to put as much text in that guy as I can get. If I have 4 years, well, I'm going to put as much text in that guy and study of how to do ministry as I can do. But if I got an unlimited time, I'm going to start expanding into, all right, now what else can we do? And so the Better Conference is a 2-day event. It usually starts on a Monday and ends on a Tuesday. It starts on a Monday at 1 o'clock, ends on a Tuesday at 11 o'clock. And it's a 2-day event that we basically bring guys in to talk about how they do what they do. And we limit to about 125, 150 participants total. We don't want a huge crowd there. We do them all over the world. We've done about 60 of them. Had about 3,500 guys that have come through it.
So, where are some of the places you, off the top of your head, that you're going to be this year?
So this year we will be in, boy, I tell you, it's going to be hard. We'll be in Arkansas twice. We'll be in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then we'll be in the northeast part of the state. I can't remember the name of the place we're going to be. It's on our website, the JenkinsInstitute.com.
JenkinsInstitute.com. Okay.
And we will be in Alabama. We'll be at Heritage again, Lord willing.
April.
We'll be in Texas. We will be in. We got a couple other cool ones coming up, and right now it's kind of escaping. We'll be in Belize, Central America. We will be in Costa Rica. So we've got some good places we're going to be going. We'll be doing one in Michigan before too long. Do another one in Kentucky, and we've got one in Denver, Colorado. So that's some of the places we've got in the book right away.
So talk to me about what are some tips you've got, because folks with this blog or folks that are doing ministry, they're trying to lead people to Jesus. Do you have some lessons learned from life that you would share with them?
I actually wrote a book called Biblical Keys to Effective Ministry. Let me give you 2 or 3 that I think are essential, and it's hard to say, this is the most important, but here's some that I found extremely important. The first is, we said earlier, keep your eye on the ball, preaching the Word of God. Don't ever forget that. I heard my dad say of a preacher one time, he said a lot of good stuff, but didn't let God get a word in edgewise. And I thought about that a lot. Am I preaching the Word of God? I heard our friend David Shannon say one time, the effectiveness of a sermon is determined by how quickly it is in the sermon that Jesus shows up. Yeah. That stayed with me. Those are some keys. Another key for ministry, I believe, is there's a direct course between between when you face a hurt and how long it takes you to get over that hurt. So the question for a minister is not, am I going to be mistreated? Am I going to be hurt? Is something bad going to happen? The answer to that is yes. Every minister. There are people say things that are despicable and ugly and horrible, and sometimes it is specifically directed toward you, and sometimes it's directed towards someone else, and you just have to be the preacher that's standing in front of them at the time. Yeah. They've been hurt by somebody else. I don't care about that, because we're all going to deal with it. That sounds mean even. I don't mean to be mean, but I don't care. You come to me, tell me how bad you're hurt. I'll cry with you, let you weep my shoulder. But ultimately I'm going to say to you, well, you signed up for this. When you got in ministry, you signed up for people to bring their pain to you, and they'll deposit it with you. The question is, how long will it take me to get over it? Fine to grieve, fine to be hurt, fine to be angry. All those emotions are fine. But if you live in them, if you get stuck in them, if you don't learn from them, you've wasted. Yeah. So how long it takes you to get over it and what you've learned from it, those keys are extremely important.
That's good. That's powerful. Well, brother, I just appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing, work that you're doing with Jeff, and I just love you and your family and Mel and the boys. And
well, I couldn't be more excited. Thank you. I love you, and I couldn't be more excited about the job you've done at Heritage. I mean, every good thing we could ask for has happened since you've been there. So
we have an awesome board, and so we feel what you feel. The word has to be preached, and we've got to get people ready to do it. And I hope those of you, we've tried throughout this to emphasize what you do matters. And you're going to have, as Alexander said, those terrible, no good, very bad days when you want to move to Australia. But you need to know that what you do matters, and that the gospel needs to be preached in Alabama and Australia and across the globe, that what you do is important. Don't quit. Don't give up. Keep standing in the gap, and God will use you to save lives and to change the world. I appreciate Dale joining us today. I appreciate you joining us. And thank you for being a part of another episode of Ministry Matters That Matter.